and fitting your new wood floor.
Dry and clear tonight with the exception of some fog inland from the northwest coast. Lowest temperatures of 0 to 4 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by the new and improved Boyle Sports Bet Builder. Now with 44 markets to choose from on every match.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
All right, you're very welcome along to Thursday's football show. Nathan with you this evening. We'll hear from Miguel Delaney a little bit later in the hour as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is confirmed as the new permanent manager of Manchester United. But right now we want to talk to John Giles. Evening, John.
Evening, Nathan.
We'll get on to Solskjaer's appointment as United manager later, but really we have to start with Ireland, and job done for Mick McCarthy. 2 wins from 2 1-0 wins, no goals conceded, and they go into the June fixtures in a positive state of mind, and a good performance as well, I think, more than anything, on Tuesday night against Georgia. It feels as though there's a bit of a feel-good factor back.
Yeah, it was very, very good, Nathan. Certainly much better than Gibraltar. I thought Mick was good after the match. He said, I hated every minute of it, and I can understand why. Actually, I thought the match might have been postponed. It was a very, very high wind, and when you're playing in the situations like that, I think that always favours the underdogs, and Gibraltar definitely were the underdogs, because it's very difficult to get the ball down, as we saw, and play. So it wasn't a very, very good match to watch, no doubt about that. But to get the result, obviously, was the main thing. Randolph did brilliantly for us, in the 2 matches. But to make the save he made in the first half would have been very, very dodgy for us to get back into the game, Nathan, had they gone ahead, because you can delay the game even more so than they were. I don't blame them for that. They were the underdogs, and the draw would have been a great result for them. But it's a very, very difficult match to play in when you got those type of conditions.
Yeah. So do you almost give them
wasn't great. So I think Mick was right afterwards to say, delighted, hated every minute of it, but we got the 3 points.
Yeah, and it's just a case of getting out with the 3 points. You don't read a huge amount into the performance levels when the conditions are like that?
No, definitely not. Obviously, there were a few good ones. I thought Coleman was back to form again. I thought he was outstanding in the second match, but in the match where it was difficult to play, I thought he was very, very good. Obviously, Randolph did his stuff as well. So it was very, very difficult, a very difficult match, Nathan. But the second match, different story altogether. I think it's the best we've played, certainly in the last, 10, 12 matches in Dublin. There was a bit of life about it, a bit of go about it. McGoldrick was good up front. I thought Coleman was outstanding. The defence was outstanding. Randolph good again. Whelan. I thought Whelan played as well as I've ever seen him play for the Irish team, Nathan.
Yeah, talk about that, because Mick McCarthy made 2 changes, and it might have been seen as something of a surprise that Glenn Whelan came back in. It was his first competitive start for Ireland in 18 months. Most people thought he'd retired last November, and there was probably a bit of hesitancy amongst Irish supporters when they saw his name there, because people think back to a lot of the performances that we've been critical of where Ireland have been totally overrun in midfield. Why didn't that happen this time?
We got on the ball more, and we had more of the ball, and we kept the ball better. I wasn't particularly happy I should see Whelan's name on the sheet, but to be fair to him, I thought he played well. I thought the defence played really well. Brady could play better. McLean probably had the worst match I've seen him for a long time. His discipline was poor. He's given a lot of free kicks away. Didn't play well at all, which is unusual for him. But I think the whole tempo of the game was good for Ireland. I think we got on the ball much better than we have done in recent times, and used the ball a lot better. Hendrick was good. Brady could play better. Doherty was a little bit unlucky, Nathan. I think we spoke about it last week. To be picked in midfield in the match in Gibraltar is a totally different position to the position he normally plays at Wolves, which is a wing back. It's totally different, and he was subbed in the match, as we know, and left out the team. I would have put him in at left back, as we talked about last week. But to be fair, Stevens at left back has done nothing wrong. He's actually played well. So I think Doherty's a little bit unlucky to be in the position that he's in.
There's a lot to get through then as you go through the team and the performances. But just on Glenn Whelan and his renaissance on Tuesday night, when you look at that type of performance and the criticism we've all given him down through the years and the frustrations we've had at an Irish midfield's inability to keep hold of the ball. Was it a case that he's been used wrong when you think back to the midfield two Trapattoni would have gone with Whelan and Keith Andrews? Is he just better in that holding role?
I think Trapattoni was definitely picked a team that was going to contain the opposition, and I think they were noted Whelan and as the holding midfield players. I don't think they were expected to get on the ball. I think Mick has a different philosophy altogether and has done in previous teams where he wants the midfield players to get on the ball. So definitely managers do have an influence on how the player performs. I mean, I think Whelan might have been told, even with Martin O'Neill, you're the holding midfield player, but don't expect you to get on the ball, protect the back four, which is an impossibility to do, by the way, and just be the holding midfield player. I don't think Mick said that to him. I think he said, look, when you have to defend, you're going to defend, but when you get on the ball, you get on the ball and you play, which he did. And all the midfield players tried to play. I think that was the difference between the last 12 months in Martin's reign, that we didn't get on the ball at all.
Yeah.
And these were basically the same players who can do better. Brady can do better. McLean can do better. McGoldrick was very good up front. He was lively on his own, which is a very, very difficult job. So there was an upbeat, in my opinion anyway, about the Irish performance. It wasn't an easy match to win. I mean, Georgia not that bad, Nathan. Well, not bad at all. And they did come into the game in the second half. But the defence was very, very good. Gave very little away. And the lads in the middle of the field did their job. And McGoldrick, particularly up front, on his own, did what is a very, very difficult job.
It feels as though we've probably maybe spent too much time over the last few years talking about the questions over Irish players' technical ability, and maybe we were brainwashed into thinking they didn't have it and they couldn't control a ball in midfield. That, in fact, it was just the way they were set up, because we saw on Tuesday night that when they are empowered, as Mick McCarthy seemed to do with Glenn Whelan, Conor Howerhan, Jeff Hendrick, actually they can get the ball down on the ground and they can pass it around and they can control a game. Yeah,
they always could. It's a question of being encouraged to do it. And the manager insisting on doing it. Now, don't be too hard on Martin O'Neill, but obviously that's what we saw on the pitch, and that's all we can go on. But we've always had players who can get on the ball. I mean, they're not Modric's. We don't have that, but there's players that can get on the ball, as proven. But there was an openness and a bit of creativity around the match in the 90 minutes, Nathan, as we haven't seen for a while. And it was the same players. But it's like Solskjaer taking over Manchester United with a different approach. Then the players can be different as well. And definitely Whelan over the years has been noted as a holding midfield player. But he was more than that. I mean, he got his tackles in, but he used the ball well, better than I've seen him ever probably in the Irish team. Hendrick was good. Brady can do better. McLean can do better. So it was encouraging, Nathan. It haven't suddenly become a great team. But it was encouraging, and I think that the supporters picked up on it. There was something to shout about. There's something to go at. We attacked when we could. We didn't sit back after we scored a goal. So there was all those things that were positives in the match.
Particularly considering Mick McCarthy probably had 4 or 5 training sessions maximum with the players ahead of these two games. He'll have a lot more time. They're going to have a training camp over in Portugal before the qualifiers in June. But as you say, encouraging them to do the right thing. Like that Jeff Hendrick performance, we haven't seen that probably since Euro 2016. We've rarely seen it for Ireland, where actually when he picked the ball up in midfield, he'd turn towards the opposition goal and not take the easy option of giving it to a full-back or a centre-back. Like that's clearly something that comes from the manager.
Oh, definitely. See, the manager is the manager, Nathan. You know that's an obvious statement. But the manager dictates and gets into the players' heads on what he wants them to do, and frees them. Frees them to say, "This is what I want you to do. When we have the ball, we're going to use it." That's what a manager's for. The manager's there to influence players, and definitely as time goes by, say on that match and the 2 matches that we've played, the manager's to spot what went wrong. How do you put it right? You get better, and you should get better as you go along. And like we saw, as you say, Mick had very, very little opportunities with the team before the 2 matches. Didn't even have a friendly match, but you could see the difference on the pitch. What's the great thing about football? Like if the manager's doing his stuff, doing it a certain way, it manifests itself out on the pitch, Nathan. And what we saw was definitely an improvement. Not saying we're the best team in the world overnight, but there was an improvement in the way the players played, and they're virtually the same players. There's hardly any new players come into that team apart from Stevens, I think, that has been played over the last 12 months where we played very, very poorly. So it's encouraging, and it's something to look forward to.
And that freedom that they played with, and the energy and the pace, does that come as well from the certainty of knowing your job, of getting the team 24 hours beforehand, of having worked on it on the training ground for the pitch, of knowing exactly what's expected of you?
Well, you can never do exactly what's expected of you, Nathan. You know, you can only. But when you pick a player like Hendrick, and all you're asking him to do is what he's capable of doing, right? And that's good management. Getting out of players what they're capable of doing. They don't suddenly become overnight stars and great players overnight. But you get the best of what they can do, and they have to be free to do that. And it's not necessarily the system or that. The players go out. When you look at a system, Nathan, after 10 minutes, the system is not there. Players are all over the place because of where the ball is. But they have a freedom, a general freedom, to express themselves and do what they can do. And that's what we saw from the players. And that's down to the manager. You know, Mick has come in and he definitely hasn't maybe placed too much emphasis on doing certain things, but freeing them to go and play and use the abilities that they have. And that's all we can do. You're not going to make great players overnight with the players we have, but you can get the best out of what we have. And I think that was what showed on the Aviva the other night.
The big decision ahead of the game and the big talking point for the last few months was what would happen with Seamus Coleman and Matt Doherty, and you spoke about it there and last week that you felt the right side of midfield role probably wasn't for him. It's a very different role to the one he was playing with at Wolves. From what you saw on Saturday, like Mick McCarthy said straight after the game, he felt it didn't work, which is why he took Doherty off early. Did you think it was just a failure, Coleman and Doherty on that right wing?
Yeah, I couldn't see it happening, Nathan. Well, first of all, I didn't say I couldn't see it happening because he might have done better in the midfield role than I expected him to do. But he didn't. I mean, it's a totally different role, coming onto the ball as a wing back. And I think I said to you the other day, like in that position, the midfield players at Wolves release Doherty to do what he can do, best going down the wing, which is raiding. But when he's played a midfield role, he's expected to set Coleman free. It's a different story. It's a different game altogether. I feel sorry for the lad because he's sort of too good a player to not be in our team. And that's what I suggested last week when we were talking that he'd play at left back. I think he could play at left back, and I still believe that. But to be fair to Stevens did exceptionally well, and I think it would be very harsh on him to be left out of the team. But again, if I was picking the team again, what I think the best team, I would have Doherty at left back even then, even though as well as Stevens played. But I definitely wouldn't have him in a midfield role, Nathan. Well, he took him off after 60 minutes, 70 minutes in Gibraltar. He's not able to do that. He's a very, very good player. He's a very good wing back, and he's very good when he gets in that position for Wolves. But there was nobody. Well, to be fair, and Gibraltar was very difficult to get on the ball for anybody. Never mind Doherty. But I can't see him in that role, especially with the players that we have. Hendrick is doing his stuff, and the other players, Horan is doing his stuff, McLean's doing his stuff, Whelan's doing his stuff, which he did. I can't see him improving on them, any of them, in midfield.
And it looks as though he's going to have to wait for an injury, because Mick McCarthy said after the game when it was brought up about potentially playing him as a left back ahead of Enda Stevens, he said, I've got a good one in Enda Stevens. I won't be doing that's for sure. He said the Doc plays right wing back. It's unfortunate for them, but it's unfortunate for me because if one of them gets injured, I've got another good one. I'm playing Seamus and I'm afraid it's just tough on the Doc. If he gets in for any reason, then it's his place to keep. I guess it's a challenge mentally then for Matt Doherty over the next while when he's playing so well at club level, could well be in the PFA Team of the Year as the best right wing back in the Premier League, and to not be getting into your international side, that must be hugely frustrating.
Well, it would be for him, and I feel sorry for him in that situation. But Mick is the manager, and Mick's statements I would totally agree with. It would be my opinion to put him in at left back, but I can understand it that if Stevens is doing his stuff, and it's very unfortunate for Doherty to be in this position. But there's no harm from Mick's point of view to have a player like that in the panel. Wouldn't it be great if we had players and in all positions that could be in the team and do a job for you? That's the ideal. But I think he's unfortunate, really unfortunate, Doherty, to be in the position that he's in.
Seamus Coleman's performance then, you spoke about him in Gibraltar, but at home against Georgia then on Tuesday night, we've probably never seen Seamus Coleman get forward so often to the byline. Maybe his final ball lacked a little bit at times, or maybe there weren't enough options in the penalty area for him, but it felt like the type of home performance we've been waiting for Seamus Coleman for quite a while.
Yeah, well, again, fullbacks and Coleman's fullback, obviously, you're dependent on other players to set you free, Nathan. You know what I mean? You can't do it unless he's a brilliant dribbler and go past players. Well, fullbacks don't do that, but they go at the right time. But they have to depend on other players to get them into position to do what they can do, which is getting forward. And that usually comes from midfield. Now, in the past 12 months, we haven't played well enough, I don't think, in midfield to release Coleman. I mean, if you go back over the matches, you look at them again, you probably would see that Coleman was getting forward as much as he normally does. He wasn't getting the ball.
Right.
No, when you're a fullback in the wing-back position like Coleman, you're dependent on other players to free in that position. And if they're not doing their stuff, Nathan, you're not going to be doing your stuff. That's why midfield is so important. Midfield players are the only ones on the pitch. The defenders, the attackers are dependent on the midfield players doing their stuff. That's why we call them midfield, because they're the connection between back and front. And if they're not doing the stuff, then the lads at the back won't get to the front. I know that sounds a bit complicated, but it all depends on the midfield players getting on the ball, which we did, and it freed. And Coleman would be making the runs because that's what he does. He does that naturally. But if the midfield players are not doing it, he's not going to get the ball. So therefore, people say, "Oh, Coleman didn't play as well as he has been," but it's because he's not getting the supply. But he did get the supply the other day, and I thought he was outstanding. Stevens was outstanding on the left-hand side of the field. But I think Coleman was back in the last two matches, was back to his very best.
Gary Breen was making the point that Mick McCarthy's been in this situation before when it came to full-backs. Even last time he was in charge of Ireland, he had the likes of Gary Kelly, Stephen Carr, Steve Finnan. He was saying that they're actually better players than Matt Doherty and Seamus Coleman, that those were the choices that McCarthy had 16, 17 years ago. Where do you rate Coleman in terms of Irish right-backs of the last 15, 20 years?
I think he's been up there. And we had some, Dennis Irwin was an outstanding player. We've had a few outstanding players in that position. But I would put Coleman up with the best of them. Definitely.
Yeah.
He's a good-hearted lad. He's very honest. He's quick getting forward. I thought he was back to his best. Now, I think his form at Everton wasn't fair on him. I thought he was playing better than people saying he was. I just thought Everton were having a bad time. But certainly over the two matches, a very difficult match in Gibraltar, but he got forward at the right time. I think he's back to his best, and at his best, he's up there, I think, along with Dennis Irwin, and that's a huge compliment to him.
David McGoldrick obviously got the job on Tuesday night of leading the line. A slight change. Shawnee Maguire dropped out. He played deeper against Gibraltar. What did you make of McGoldrick as that number 9 and trying to bring the midfielders more into the game?
I thought he was very good, Nathan. That is one of the most difficult jobs in football. When you're playing up front on your own, you expect to hold it, you're supposed to get around the back of players and that. Well, one thing is for sure, he's a very, very honest lad. He did his best, and he did it well. It's a very, very difficult position to play. Now, he was well supported, as you said early on, by the midfield players, which hasn't happened in over the last 12 months. They did get forward as much as they possibly could to help him, and most of the time they did. But McGoldrick was very good, very honest, and did the job really well.
Yeah. The Callum O'Dowd is possibly going to be available, you'd hope, for the games in June. But do you think if everybody's fit and available, you just go same again away to Denmark?
Yeah, I wouldn't say any difference between the home and away situation. You got to go play. I think O'Dowd's been unlucky to be injured at a time where people are getting into the team and establishing themselves in the team. But the sooner he gets, you can't have too many good players, Nathan. On the bench, you can't, and the competition for places. I think it's a great situation for Mick McCarthy to be in. To have the Doherty situation, for example, wouldn't it be great if you had that in every position? I think O'Dowd is a very, very good player, and it certainly wouldn't let you down if you brought him in the team. But it's good to have them. The more good players you have, the better, because we'll get injuries. You make substitutions, so the more you have, the better it is for Mick McCarthy.
What did you make of the tennis ball protest against the FAI?
I don't know what it was really about, Nathan, but I didn't think very much of it, because it could have been very crucial, in fact, in the game. I don't know where it came from, the tennis balls thrown them on the pitch. I mean, there's other ways of making protests. I mean, whether whoever threw the balls in saw it somewhere else, I didn't really get the...
Yeah, I think it had happened in Germany previously.
Did it? Well, it's a copycat thing. But Nathan, it could have been very, very serious. I mean, it made 4 extra minutes on the game. This was at a time when we're hanging onto the goal a little bit. What would have happened if they scored in those 4 minutes? What sort of support would that be?
Well, I guess if there wasn't the delay of the 3 minutes, anything could have really happened in the other 15 minutes of the first half.
Yeah, but we were winning, Nathan. We were winning. We were winning. We were on the winners with the 4 minutes to go. You know, it would have been different if we were. It'd be in your best interest to be looking for 4 minutes if you were one behind, but we were one in front. I'm just saying, imagine that if that would have happened, say they scored in the last 4 minutes, that the game would probably been up.
Yeah.
How would you feel about the protest then? I thought it was, and I think UEFA are going to come into this to find the FAI for what happened. So I don't see that as a clever move at all, and I hope it doesn't happen again. There's other ways to protest about what things that you want to protest against without affecting the game. I think that's it's just not right.
Yeah, I guess it was probably unfortunate timing. At the exact moment, the 33rd minute was just as Ireland were standing over the free kick. Now, it worked out perfectly in the end that Conor Horan smashed it into the back of the net. It was that Ireland were in a decent position.
Anyway, Nathan, just because he was waiting for... Actually, when you're waiting for 4 minutes, doesn't help. Because you're standing around waiting. He knew what he was going to do. Anyway, I don't agree with it, and I hope it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens at the next home international against Gibraltar. There have been other protests that the FAI have tried to stamp out at various times. Next Thursday, I think John Delaney's in front of the FAI, or is in front of the Oireachtas committee next Wednesday, and you want to see what's said there, I think, before we'll have a chat about John Delaney and his new role within the FAI.
Definitely. I mean, there's been a lot of publicity. A lot of people on the radio have had people on the radio and not having a go at John Delaney, and I don't think it's fair that you can't represent yourself. And I think the committee meetings will give him an opportunity to make to say what he wants to say. Because all I've seen is criticism, and he's gone before these committees, and he hasn't had the chance to, in my opinion, to defend himself or to say what he wants to say on his behalf. So I think these committees, we will chat about it after that, Nathan, when he has a chance to present his own case.
Yeah, so that's next Wednesday. John Delaney goes in front of the Oireachtas Sports Committee. We'll definitely be touching on that with John next Thursday evening. So that's our Ireland on the pitch. Certainly a very good week for Mick McCarthy. The other big story today, John, is one we've been talking about for a couple of months as well, but it's been confirmed Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the new manager of Manchester United. He has agreed a 3-year deal. I can't imagine you're overly surprised.
No, I think he's done whatever's been asked of him. Nathan, there's no doubt about that. I think I said before on this programme, if Pochettino had been available, I would have gone for Pochettino. But it is what it is. He's done whatever. It's going to be a different job, Nathan. You know, definitely. Once you go past the honeymoon stage, which he's at now, and it's definitely a reaction from the players of getting rid of Mourinho. All those things come into play. So I think from now on, if they get new players in, then the players that he already has is not going to be too pleased. It's going to be a different managerial situation for him, and it's going to be more testing, I think, than this particular situation now. But he's earned the right to do it, and good luck to him. But I think it's going to be a far more difficult job for him to do and continue on from where he is. But we'll wait and see on that. But he's earned a chance.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. You do think actually what he's done, the body of work he's managed to put together in 3 months, the spirit he's brought back to the club, that is deserving of a full-time contract?
Yes, I think it is. But again, I said before, if Pochettino was available, I would have gone for him rather than Solskjaer. But it is as it is, and we'll see what happens, Nathan. But it's going to be a different job now as he goes along to the one that he took over. The one that he took over he's done exceptionally well at, and he deserves to have the chance to do it.
Yeah, and that has a whole load of different parts of the job now that he needs to deal with. New contracts, David De Gea, Marcus Rashford this week been linked with a potential move away from the club, and also who they buy during the summer, because their transfer policy has been massively hit and miss. With what Liverpool and Manchester City have been doing, you'd imagine they're going to be in the market for players in the region of 120 million pounds. You have to get that decision right if you're the manager of Manchester United.
Yeah, well, this is where the situation changes, Nathan. Say he buys 3 players, right? That means there's 3 players going to be left out. This is where it comes into management. Now, since he took over at Manchester United, there's been no windows. He hasn't got new players in, and he's done what he's done with the players that he's got at his disposal, and he's done very, very well. Now, in the summer, for example, say they buy 3 players, then somebody's not going to be happy. Then it becomes a different job of management altogether. You know, that's the thing in the game, and the fact that the players have proven that Mourinho was wrong, that'll be gone as well. So it'll be sort of a new job, a totally new job for Solskjaer when the next season starts, and it's a different test to the one that he's had done very, very well in, which is the initial test. So it's going to be, well, all managers every season, it's a different test every season, but it's particularly different for him because it's a new season, new players will be coming in, the players that are doing well for him now will be out of the squad, and they're not going to be too happy. All those things come into management. So it's going a new job for him and a new test for him next year. But he's done well to get into position, and I think he's earned what he's been given so far.
It's a real reminder that football moves very fast for Mauricio Pochettino, who it felt like for the last 18 months was very much the next man for Manchester United, and he would be offered the job and he was moving into a position where the job would be his if he wanted it. And then Ole Gunnar Solskjaer turns up, has this miraculous 3 months, and Pochettino's out of the picture, whether or not he wanted to stay at Spurs or not. You'd wonder what's going to develop there over the summer now, and whether he looks at other jobs. Zidane has gone to Real Madrid. Suddenly those attractive options are no longer there for him.
Well, yeah, but he didn't create the situation, Nathan. That were out of his hands, and he did sign a very lucrative contract, I believe, last year for Spurs. So he was in a very, very good position. That if Manchester United didn't come in for him, which they haven't, Real Madrid, it's not a bad job at Spurs.
Yeah.
He's still there. Like, to be fair to him, he never said that he wanted the jobs anywhere else. I think he would have been in the running, but it hasn't happened. But it's not as if he's been knocked out of Spurs. You know, Spurs might spend money in the summer, and he's still going to be well paid. He's got another 4 years on his contract, so he's not in too bad a position, Nathan. There's a lot of managers in worse positions than Pochettino is at the moment.
He's got a big game this weekend to focus on as well. Spurs go to Anfield on Sunday to take on Liverpool. It's our live game on Off the Ball. It's a huge game for Liverpool as well, because Manchester City are at home against Fulham, a game you would expect them to win quite comfortably on Saturday morning. Like, Liverpool Spurs games generally have tended to be classics over the last few years. Not a huge amount between the sides. What are you expecting on Sunday?
Well, it's certainly one of the most difficult matches for Liverpool. There's no doubt, because Spurs on their day can be very, very good. Nathan, as we know, I think Liverpool are at home, are they?
They are, yeah. It's at Anfield.
You know, it's a test, another test along the way, and it's one of the major matches. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, if I was a betting man now, I would go for Liverpool to do it.
Jurgen Klopp let Mo Salah go off on a bit of a holiday, I think, during the international break, and rest up and try and get his head back together. Have you any concerns about Salah's lack of goals over the last few weeks?
Not really, Nathan. I think all goal scorers, have these particular spells. And the way Salah plays and the way he scores his goals, there's not much room for error in his technique, Nathan. And we might have spoken about this before. I mean, there was one match there he missed a couple of chances, and his first touch was good. His second touch went probably a yard at the most further than he wanted it to go, and didn't score from it. So his technique is absolutely brilliant, but it has to be spot on.
Yeah.
There's no room for error at all in Salah when he gets through. You know, he does the dribble, gets the goalkeeper in the right position, and in one of the matches, the match I'm talking about, he knocked it a yard too far, which made him a yard nearer the goalkeeper than he expected to be, and the goalkeeper got a touch to it, where normally, on his best days, he would have had a yard back from the goalkeeper to knock it in the back of the net. So he's one of those players where his touch has to be immaculate, and it is most of the time. So he's still getting his chances, Nathan, but he hasn't been knocking them in like he was last year. But there's very, very little wrong with what he's doing. But he can't afford to have anything wrong in his approach to the goals.
Yeah, when you look at his goal-scoring record, you certainly couldn't say that Salah's not a natural goal-scorer, considering the sheer amount of goals over the last 18 months at Liverpool. But when you do compare that technique to, I don't know, maybe someone like Harry Kane or even Sergio Aguero stand out, where like Kane in particular always seems to have a way he can almost bundle it in, he can scuff a shot, but he'll always get it on target.
Yeah, well, if you look at them over, if you were to take the 10 of their goals each, Nathan, you would see a huge difference in their technique and how they score the goals. You know what I mean? Harry Kane will score a lot more goals outside the box than Salah will. But Harry Kane wouldn't be dribbling and getting the ball past goalkeepers like Salah does at his best. They're two different types of strikers. Both are brilliant strikers, but different techniques in what they do. But there's more room for error in Harry Kane's technique, in my opinion, than Salah's. Yeah.
All right, John. Great stuff as always. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
Yeah. Thanks, Nathan.
Football on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by the new and improved Boyle Sports Bet Builder. Now with 44 markets to choose from on every match.
Tech Talk with Jess Kelly.
Coming up this week, we're talking sleep tech. I've reviewed some devices that promise to give you a better night's kip. I'll give you an honest review of what worked and what didn't. We'll give away a €1,000 voucher to put towards a new mattress with thanks to Harvey Norman. Plus, we'll hear how and why Nashville is looking to become the tech hub in America.
Tech Talk with Jess Kelly.
Thanks to Harvey Norman.
Download the podcast on Friday from noon or tune in on Sunday at the later time of 7.
On News Talk.
It's always the way. Just when you need to buy a new appliance, your bank account goes, ha, no chance. Sure, it's 3 weeks till payday, you big idiot. And that's when you turn to Flexify with 0% APR at appliances delivered. TVs, washing machines, kettles. Get Flexify on appliances between €80 and €499.99. These terms and conditions apply, subject to minimum purchase amount, credit assessment and approval. See appliancesdelivered.ie.
Football Index is reinventing football betting. You can buy and sell the world's top players. Their value may go up and down, but it's not over with the final whistle like a regular bet. Football Index, reinventing football betting.
Start building your portfolio today at footballindex.co.uk or download the app now. New customers only, minimum deposit and conditions apply. Gamble responsibly.
A very special place, historic and contemporary, stylish and sophisticated. Farnham Estate Golf and Spa Resort in Cavan makes the perfect venue for one of the most memorable occasions of all, your wedding. Couples are invited to the Farnham Estate Wedding Showcase on Saturday, April 6th from 12 to 4 p.m. Meet the wedding team, share a glass of bubbly and sample the delicious canapes while you view the hotel's magical outdoor ceremony space and romantic ballroom, set up as it would be on your big day. We look forward to welcoming you. farnhamestate.ie.
This is an emergency appeal from GOAL. Cyclone Idai has caused massive flooding and devastation across Zimbabwe and Malawi, with the death toll increasing daily. Families have lost everything. GOAL staff are on the ground providing food, clean water, shelter and care, but we urgently need your help to reach more people. Please donate now, online at goal.ie or by calling 1850 832 100. That's 1850 832 100. Please don't delay. Time is running out.
€3.5 billion. That's how much fraud and cybercrime is costing Irish business and the state every year. On May the 17th, the International Fraud Prevention Conference takes place in Dublin's RDS. For the first time, the world's top experts will be in one place to help provide solutions to this growing problem. Whether you're a large corporation, public body or small business, the International Fraud Prevention Conference is a must. Register now at internationalfraudprevention.com.
Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
You're very welcome back to Thursday night's football show. If you missed any of that chat with John Giles, it'll be up on offtheball.com right now. We did touch on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's appointment as Manchester United's full-time manager on a 3-year contract. Want to go a little bit deeper into that now with the Independent's chief football correspondent, Miguel Delaney. Evening, Miguel.
Evening.
Was this a done deal ever since the turnaround against Paris Saint-Germain?
From even before that, I'd heard basically that there was just too much momentum behind it. Even in terms of other targets, the feeling was always but I think from quite early February, Pochettino it was going to be very, very difficult to get, and just so everything kind of came together for Solskjaer to get the job. But maybe the Paris Saint-Germain, the kind of, not so much the confirmation, but maybe the kind of the game that basically proved to them that they were making the right decision. Although it shouldn't be overlooked that when he was appointed, it's genuinely true that United had no intention. Sorry, when he was appointed as caretaker, United had no intention of giving him the job full time. But he's changed a lot of minds to the point that since February, it's basically been virtually certain.
We hear all the time about Manchester United being the biggest football club in the world, being one of the biggest jobs in the world, not just because of what happens on the pitch, but just the amount of stories that emanate from the club and just managing a club of that size. Is that a side of it that he's impressed on as well, or are other people taking on more of the responsibilities?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the one thing you have to say about ultimately in football, I suppose, that everything is decided by results, no matter what you say, no matter what you do. If you're not winning games, none of that matters. And by the same token, and you can see this maybe with Brendan Rodgers say Liverpool in 2013-14, you can get away with saying anything if you're winning games. But in spite of, I think if you look at all the different elements of the job, he's basically done it as well as he could. There's basically been no needless problems in the way there was with Jose Mourinho so often, particularly I suppose in terms of the tone around the club. And I know that instigated by Louis van Gaal maybe over the last few days, there's even been this debate over whether Solskjaer actually plays attacking football. But I think that's almost the point, because even in some of those games he's been counter-attacking, it's been counter-attacking with a properly exciting angle to it, because it's not just been like, say, Mourinho's performance against Liverpool in October 2017, where there was like a 50-yard gap between 10 players and Romelu Lukaku. It's been, you can see proper structure and cohesion to their counter-attacking, and even that has had a thrill about it. So I think that's what's key. It's not just as simple as putting smiles on faces, but he's handled every different element of the job well. And I suppose, the one big question about him was maybe in terms of his experience taking over a big club, as you mentioned. But that's why everyone's saying that feeling has been so important. Similarly, the other coaches, Carrick and McKenna, that he's delegated well to them. And they've almost been, actually to a modern degree, what we heard about Martin O'Neill at his best with Ireland and Celtic, where O'Neill trusted his training ground coaches to such an extent that they would almost be his database from which he'd make team decisions on. And that sounds similar with Solskjaer now.
You mentioned there that there was no intention to give Solskjaer the job when he was originally brought in as a caretaker, and that Mauricio Pochettino was going to be an incredibly complicated deal to get done. In that initial month, though, after Solskjaer came in, did Manchester United make many soundings towards Pochettino or anybody else about becoming the permanent manager?
Yeah, even by mid-January, and which was actually, of course, just before United played Tottenham and beat them, in probably what was actually maybe Solskjaer's most fortunate game, even ahead of PSG. But it was symbolic in that sense. They were still very determined to have a proper go at getting Pochettino. And from what I heard at the time, basically, Pochettino was far and away the number one choice, like by a significant distance. He was basically seen as almost the anointed one. But Solskjaer quickly changed that to complement maybe changed circumstances with Spurs as well.
What are the goals then for Solskjaer over the next 3 years? Because when Mourinho came in, it was clear that there was an expectation he would turn them back into a title-winning side, and they finished second last season without ever getting anywhere near Manchester City. For some reason, it doesn't feel as though there's quite as much pressure on Solskjaer to get them contending for a title even next season.
Right now, yes, but that's and I think that's what's going to be the really interesting thing about this job now, because right now, and even if they don't finish top four this season and they don't win the Champions League, so don't return there, he'll get a pass because of the nature of the season and the kind of feel-good aspect, although there will be an element of a missed opportunity. But I think that will completely change from from basically when he returns for pre-season in the summer, because then it's a completely different job. It's no longer coming in to rescue what was a really grim situation at United. It's a clean slate, and it's about basically putting his own stamp on it now. And I think, I'd say next season probably expected to finish in the top four, and because of the kind of the general way these things go, maybe the expectation that he'll need a season to get in his own men and put his own, and maybe shape the team to his own design, they'll be given a bit of a pass for that. But from the following season, which would be I'm losing track, 2020-21, Christ, there'll be real expectation and pressure to win a league, because that's with the resources United have, that's what they should be.
You mentioned Mike Phelan there and his importance. He wasn't mentioned in this statement from Manchester United as to whether he would stay on. I presume the intention is that he will stay on. It seems as though he's been a hugely important figure over the last few months.
Yeah, I think it came up in Solskjaer's press conference, but the entire staff is that he has now is staying on. So that will continue. The structure will take in place. And you never know. But the one thing I keep thinking about this, basically, because of the way everything's gone, and even in spite of the defeat in the last 2 matches after PSG, which does hint maybe at the danger of how this could go, it was impossible not to give him the job out of that. But at the same time, it's equally impossible. I think, why didn't they just wait a bit? Because it is very. It all feels so good now, despite the last 2 results. But that can so quickly change in the space of a month. If he goes out against Barcelona and they don't finish in the top 4 after having failed to win the FA Cup.
Yeah.
But I think there is probably a tangible reason for that, and it points to actually bigger problems at United, which is they need to start planning for the summer. But and to do that, they basically need some football authority there. They don't have a director of football, which they want to appoint. So they essentially need to have a manager in place, and I do think that has fed into maybe the speed of this decision.
So is there a sense that Solskjaer would be quite open to a director of football?
Yeah, well, I think when he took on the job, he knew the score. Whereas Mourinho was known to be against that, and I think it was one of the reasons actually Mourinho was eventually sacked, or one of the main reasons. Obviously, the results, general vibe was so bad. That was almost the final straw. He was written to a director of football, but Solskjaer, he's been made aware of what the club wants to do. He's in tune with it. Although from everything I hear, that they still haven't specified exactly what the director of football role would be, and it looks like there mightn't even be an appointment in 2019. So with that in mind, there's actually maybe that bit more logic that Solskjaer's been appointed now, so he can properly prepare for the summer. Even though, looking from the outside, you would think maybe they should have just waited a little bit.
Yeah, you talk about the pressure there of turning back into a top 4 side and a championship contending side. A side as well that can attract the best players in the world, and there's going to be an awful lot of attention on how much money they spend, how much money will be available, and who they're going to target over the summer. I guess Solskjaer can properly start thinking about that now. Any indications from what you're hearing around United as to what sort of transfer kit he's going to have?
Well, Woodward knows that this kind of is almost a decision he has to get right. So from everything we've heard from the outside, basically, or from inside the club, is that he's going to give Solskjaer whatever it takes to get it right. And this could be another summer of big expenditure, but maybe not big expenditure in the way that we've almost a kind of a lazy big expenditure we've become accustomed to at United, where they just go out and sign kind of big names, with the Sanchez case being the most prominent example of that. Although from what I hear, they're going to try and get Sanchez off the wage bill this summer, although whether there be too many takers is another issue. But the two primary targets, because they want to give pace in the right wing, so that's Jadon Sancho, and I've heard they and Paris Saint-Germain have already made an inquiry for Rafael Varane at Real Madrid, who United have been interested in for some time. Previously, Madrid have had no interest in doing business. I think it was something that was mentioned last summer with all the talk of Mourinho and bring a centre-half. But because Madrid want to initiate such an overhaul of their own this summer, and there's talk of a £500 million expenditure with Hazard and Mbappe, and maybe even Pogba coming in, although I don't think United will sell Pogba. But I was talking to someone who knows Madrid well this morning, and they were saying all bets are off with Madrid this summer because of the extent of what they want to do. So Varane could, for once, be available. But if Sancho and Varane would both be, that would come to 200 million. Beyond that, I think they want a few other. Well, what Solskjaer wants to do is basically have a young, pacey side with a bit of backbone. And there's talk of Wan-Bissaka at Palace and even Hudson-Odoi at Chelsea, although I can't see Chelsea selling him this summer.
Yeah, you'd imagine as well they'd be after a central midfielder.
Yeah, well, actually, that hasn't come up as much. Although you from what I've heard, in fact, I haven't heard any distinctive targets. I mean, Cruz has been thrown around a bit, but I'm not sure they go back in for him. Of course, Bale has actually. I think Bale will be offered to them, but United don't have the interest they had in him that they would have had 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard as well, they've no interest in Coutinho right now either.
And the other part of it then is trying to tie down players to long-term contracts. David De Gea probably the most pressing. And when you talk about Real Madrid spending up on 500 million, maybe he's back on the radar again. And also Marcus Rashford, who's been linked with a move to Spain today.
Yeah, but I think Barcelona, I know for a fact, have been very interested in Rashford and sought meetings with his people. Real Madrid have more tentative interest. I still, given how much the situation has improved, and how happy he'd be there, I couldn't see him moving on. De Gea is a more interesting case. He wants to be made the best paid player of the club, which he probably should be. If you look at his performance over the last half decade, he shouldn't be paid less than Alexis Sanchez. But part of that as well, I think, is the fees his agent would require for such a contract, which United are balking at a bit at the moment. But then, of course, his agent is George Mendes, and he's had such a strong relationship with United over the past few years. They have lent him a lot to get a fair few deals through. So, I mean, your gut would still say they'll eventually do it, especially because of how important De Gea is as maybe the best goalkeeper in the world, and particularly the best suited to what United are as a team right now.
Some of the older players then, and if they're talking about wage bill and obviously trying to get rid of Alexis Sanchez, probably going to be a difficult enough task, and they'll probably end up in a situation where they're still paying him a couple of $100,000 a week, even if they do get rid of him to somebody else to take on the lump sum of his contract. Players like Juan Mata, Ander Herrera, guys like that he's going to have to make a decision about over the next 2 or 3 months.
Well, I mean, actually, with Herrera could be the other way because PSG are interested in him. Again, I think that he's another that could stay. Mata, he's one of those players. I mean, he's been kind of good at United, but hasn't really kind of fully worked out. And you could imagine if they do want to kind of change the wage bill around a bit and make a proper play this summer, he could be one to move on. But the Sanchez case is very interesting because even previous suitors of Sanchez, like when he was at Arsenal for so long, the two clubs you always heard in for him were PSG and Man City, and obviously both of those have no interest now.
Yeah. What about Molde? They just got their £7 million and they're happy out.
Yeah, he's one of their favourite sons. He is their favourite son. If it all goes wrong, they'll gladly have him back. So he leaves there with plenty of grace.
The other side of this, I guess, is Mauricio Pochettino, who has seen the two jobs he's been so strongly linked with taken up, with Zinedine Zidane returning to Real Madrid and now Ole Gunnar Solskjaer getting the Manchester United job. We're never going to publicly see any disappointment from Pochettino, but a pretty stark reminder to him that when these chances come up, they don't come up too often, that maybe next time he's going to have to take it.
Actually, I'm not sure I'd say that with Madrid at United these days. I mean, in fact, from everything we heard from Spurs or from Pochettino's camp, is that when it seemed he might have a decision to make around January, whether to leave Spurs and whether that be from Madrid or United, one of the things is people were saying, well, the United job is one that actually is attractive because it doesn't come up that often. Madrid comes around so often. And even as successful as Zidane has been there, what he basically did was kind of keep a very, very good squad ticking over, whereas now he has a completely different challenge in that he has to oversee an overhaul and maybe put his own stamp on a team in a different way. So given Madrid, things could drastically change there. And United have actually become a bit more Madrid-like in the days since They're not quite as trigger happy with managers, but it's changed so much more. But I think it's an interesting one with Pochettino because it takes actually, I mean, for most people that would be a lovely problem to have, basically, to choose between a club where you're already doing a great job and taking on the greater things, or two of the biggest names in world football. Whereas I think it would have been a difficult decision for him to maybe wrench himself away from Spurs. And one of the things that came up around all this discussion in January was actually whether Pochettino himself quite had the wherewithal is maybe the wrong word, whether he quite had the will to actually leave Spurs in that way. And I think that would have been a very, very difficult decision for him. And so it's taken that out of his hand and allows him to kind of keep on at Spurs. And actually, I think that is healthier for football as a whole, because I think, especially with the way modern football is going, with the concentration of resources at all the super clubs, and just when Spurs look to be getting to a certain level, for them to be but for them to have the most important figure at the club taken away from them, so that they're completely diluted. So it just goes to another one of the richest clubs. It would have been taking a bit of the necessary variety from top level football at the moment, because ultimately, as impressive as everything the Spurs are doing right now with the stadium, with the promotion of young players, they are what they are because of Pochettino.
Good stuff, Miguel. We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, yeah, thanks.
Off the Ball on News Talk.
Welcome to the Ford Innovate 191 sales event.